Welcome back to Beyond the Stats. Just finished another Jazz beatdown.
We can't even depend on Memphis anymore.
Not even Memphis.
What is this basketball world coming to?
Yeah, and this was just not pretty. Start to finish.
I'm starting to lose me.
That's
starting to lose me. Not
That-
that I'll give up on the team, but my goodness.
I don't know. Let's start with the good. Because there was a couple good things tonight. Walker Kessler, 6 blocks.
Doesn't start, but gets the second most minutes.
Yeah, which once again I said the last video, I just start him if you're right. If it's we're trying to get you back into shape, but not. It's like he's our starting center. We're not gonna sit here and really pretend like you're 7 starting over him, right? Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. There was a comment from last video about the struggles with Markin and Collins and Kessler out there on the floor together at the first part of the season when Kessler was injured, when we really didn't have a decent point guard.
Right.
So I think the jury's out on that. We aren't settled on that part. I do appreciate the comment, but that's
we just don't know where we're at.
Yeah, that's something that we still need to see what's going on. Collins is getting, he's playing pretty strong, shooting 42.5% from three still, which was the concern coming in, right? Well, if you can shoot 42.5%.
Shooting great.
Shooting great. I'd like to see his finishing at the rim and kind of that field goal percentage go up a little bit. I think it can.
Yeah, he's been struggling.
I wonder if there's something up with his lift. It doesn't seem like he's exploding like he was even last year when we saw him play. But I think there's still a lot, and I don't even think we're really utilizing him. We're kind of, he's doing some parts where he gets the ball in the post, or he faces up and gets some shots, or he's been driving to the hole now a lot more, which is better. But he's just flat out hitting shots, man. So I want to see all three of them together.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're yet to see those three together with Keontae starting, because we made that switch when Kessler got hurt. So our team started playing better for the most part. When Keontae, used him more. That's a big thing. Not just starting, his usage. And our team was playing better at that point. We haven't seen them play yet in that rotation yet, which I'm excited to see when Marketing comes back. But 6 blocks for Kessler, that's the defense we've been waiting to see, right? That's what we've been expecting. He looks agile and stuff like that. His shot still not falling yet. Still obviously a work in progress, but that's what this is for.
If you have an injured elbow, that's the last thing that will arrive, right?
Yep, exactly, because you can't practice. You can't shoot. You can stay in shape, but you can't go out there and shoot.
You can see there was a play he made late where he steps left around Biyombo and spins around him and hooks it in quickly. I mean, the footwork is clean. Clean footwork. So we're waiting on that part to come. I thought that Fontecchio played really well.
Yeah, shooting well. Spacing the floor really nicely.
He made some tough shots. It seems like less of his shots tonight were in rhythm, as far as receiving it with an open window and kind of in the right place.
Right.
And still made the shots. I mean, and his strength is better than what we thought with him coming in, showing some plays on defense. So, like I said, I think Fontecchio, and I think he's $3 million a year. Am I off? Anyways, he's down there in the single digits. I would like to see us extend him for a year or two once we get to the end of this one. I think that's a real value for.
He's shown he can be a really good role player. Yeah, really good role player off the bench for us.
Yep, and with the way that salary cap restrictions and things that are coming into to play this offseason, you really need some lower salary guys that can be role players.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think he fits that. I think Yurt7 fits that very nicely.
And that's the thing. It's nothing against Yurt7 about wanting Kessler back in the starting lineup and stuff like that. Yurt7's playing good minutes, which also didn't make sense tonight. Yurt7 played solid, got 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Started,
played 15 minutes. I don't know.
There's no way as a coach that you can, and I mean, you brought up the point. This is how you lose players. This is how you lose the trust of players. There's no way that you can explain to somebody, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. That doesn't make sense. It's going to be tough to keep the team together and playing for you hard. And that's hard. The part where I say, you're losing us.
That's the thing, is it's hard to convince guys to want to come play here. Chris Dunn is a perfect example. 2 games ago, he started. He started 2 games ago and played solid.
Played decent.
He played solid, didn't play bad. Hasn't touched the court in the next 2 games. So you could be starting one night, and then you could just not even touch the court one night. How the hell are you supposed to get into any sort of just rhythm or security with your job or anything with that on a team like that? Why in the hell would I want to go sign in the offseason with that type of coach? Why would I want to go to that team? Because who the hell knows what my role might be?
This is hard to do as a player. Now, we understand that we are lacking talent in some places on the court, right? And we understand that
100%.
we understand that we're going to be losing quite a few games. But what we are asking for and what we're talking about is have a clear direction on who is playing, who is not, and what we are aiming for.
Right.
So we are aiming for developing young players. It seems to me that Keontae George's usage is going down. That needs to be higher. The amount of time that Keontae brings the ball off the court and Jordan Clarkson runs right to him like this, like, nah.
Go away.
Nah. Take off, eh?
Let him make the mistakes. The good and the bad. Let him be a freaking point guard.
Right.
Let him run the offense and develop and learn. You talk about developing players. We talked about before this. Another perfect example on what would be hard to want to come play here right now is Agbaji. With all the development we spent on Agbaji last season, between G League, the end of the year, and all of the amount of time we spent on him until going into the offseason and everything we spent with him in the summer league and all of the development we've spent with him, just to turn around and say, hey, we're changing your position and you might play some minutes here and there. You're playing well. You're playing fine. You're playing good minutes. You move the ball like you're supposed to. You play really good defense. You're shooting 40% from 3-point line, but you might get some minutes here and there. What's the plan there, right? That's why there's so much frustration with us with Agbaji, is because how much freaking time did we spend? It would be like spending all this time with Keontae just to next season say, hey, you're a small forward now, coming off the bench, playing 15 minutes a game.
Yep. It would piss you off, which it does with us. Watch when Agbaji plays, watch how many times, not only the guy that he's guarding, but watch how many times he gets a hand up on another person's guard and affects their shot. And when they try and pass it back, he has the quickness to also recover. He does things that do not show up on the stats. So one of the stats that was up from last season was that he was like in the top 3 in the league in the amount.
Sure, he was number 1.
I couldn't remember. He might have been.
I
know that he was way up there as far as the amount of times that he has a closeout within 5 feet of a defender. And that's in a rookie season, man.
And the percentage,
and guarding the toughest player on the other team every time.
And the numbers and the percentage like against that as well. On like the percentage that the player shot.
It's pretty incredible what he does. He's not a player that demands usage. He's shooting 38% from 3. Fantastic defender. So that's why we're asking for more minutes out of Agbaji.
He's showing a little bit here and there, more and more an ability to even drive.
Does one of the things that's good also, I mean, he spent 4 years in college, and when you're talking about draft picks, a lot of times that's viewed negatively because you have to be a 19-year-old now to be considered a high-level prospect. One of the things that does, though, that's a positive is when he's in his prime years of life, he's only on his second contract.
Right.
And so all of a sudden you have the prime of somebody's playing ability, the ceiling years, most likely, at a second-level contract, which is a big deal. And when you're dealing with the first and second aprons and the salary caps that are coming up, that is important. That's pretty essential.
And something else that's like you will never see in a stat sheet, you'll never see in a box score with him is his ability and his willingness to, there was a couple play. Olynyk kind of had got a mismatch, so he waits, passes down to Olynyk, cuts through to open the space, right? The next possession, ball's coming up. He immediately steps sideways to get out of the way, create space, is there if it's needed, and allow a lane for the player to drive, but will also come and rotate around and stuff like that. There's so many off the ball things that most players will not do. Most players on our guards on our team don't understand how to do that he will do. That you need as a role player, whether he's starting or playing 20 minutes, a game off the bench in that type of role, whatever. But that is a player you need on your team to really build a championship team.
If you have, now it's kind of, you have winning teams are supposed to have at least 2 superstars, right? Sometimes 3. And those teams a lot of times are always scraping the barrel trying to find role players like that to go with it.
He's a guy who would be starting on the majority of teams, if not starting, coming off the bench in heavy minutes and playing heavy minutes with the star players because his ability to be effective without the ball.
Not just teams, the championship contenders. And unless the team had a superstar at his position, right?
Yeah.
The championship contenders need players like him. They need players like him. They need an Aaron Gordon. They need another defensively strong Contavious Caldwell-Pope that also shoots. These types of players.
Yes.
And they are in big demand. We've said it before that Cleveland would kill to have Agbaji in their roster.
Yeah. And that's a huge reason why we hit on Agbaji so much. Why we are so frustrated at times with that is because we're supposed to be building a championship team, right? Let's not freaking throw away the pieces that you can build that championship team with. Don't throw that shit away to allow someone past their prime, several players who are either past their prime or have developed where they're going to develop, to just pound the dribble and just take away from any sort of development anywhere else.
Absolutely. So basically, in my mind, there are 2 options as far as the team that we are. Are we a team that can build to be a contender within Markkanen's years? Or are we a team that needs to build after Markkanen? So we're talking 5+ years. Those are really the only 2 options. I don't see another option that's realistic. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to bring on LeBron and Anthony Davis onto our team type deal.
Right.
So either we trade to bring on and bring on stronger players to take advantage of the Markkanen window, or we understand it's after Markkanen and we might have to move him and Collins, and that's kind of the next steps. Those are the 2 possibilities of building to a contender that I see that are real.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I don't see either scenario having us giving, huge minutes to, like we've talked about, Clarkson or even Olynyk. I don't think that either scenario really involves him, even though they are very nice players, and there are also some contenders and high-level teams that would like to have them on their roster to be strong role players off the bench for them. They can contribute in that scenario for sure. They are nice players. So that to me is kind of the breakdown, the 2 scenarios that seem real. If we, like Brian Smith, the owner, if we really are building to have a parade, he talks about this. We want to have a parade in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
Right? They don't give away a parade for having the 9th draft pick. I don't think they do.
Sometimes.
My wife went to a parade one time in Seattle. Did I tell you that story? Anyways, another time. But if we are really building towards a parade, those seem to be the 2 scenarios that are real. So let's build towards those to see which one we think is real and which one is feasible.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it doesn't really make sense, and it's frustrating that we would kind of brush aside a player like Agbaji that would fit in either scenario.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Those are my feelings.
So I don't know. It's just, we've hit it several times. It's confusing on what our goals are right now as a team. It's confusing what our goals are as an organization. We made this trade for Collins and things like that just for us to not spend any sort of development time to get players ready in the next year or 2 to make that run. We're not spending that time right now. So unless you truly think in 2 to 3 years Clarkson and Olynyk are going to be playing at a high level.
Yeah, and There was one point that we watched as the game was transitioning. They showed a picture of our bench and some of the faces on the players. And this was third quarter.
Yeah.
Some of the faces and the expressions and the body language on players on our bench, it tells a story.
And that's a big thing, right? Is the body language of the players. Like, there was a couple players really in the entire game that really were working their asses off offensively and defensively, that really were putting towards the effort for those kinds of things. And then there was a lot of just standing around and watching.
Our offense, our 5-out offense, when we supposedly have 5 shooters on the court, everybody stands there. And it comes down to, after a couple of kind of forced passes where nobody is trying to backdoor cut or screen away from the ball or anything like that, we have a person go one-on-one, and if it's our point guard that does it and we miss, the other team has a layup on the other end.
That's
what
the
happens
thing.
over and
That's
over.
the thing, is how many fast breaks did we give up today? How many times, make or miss, did we just allow a layup, 3-on-2, 2-on-1, 3-on-1?
There were times they had all 5 of their guys streaking at us. I think there was a 5-on-1
We
on
had
one of them.
One guy just
Yeah.
standing there hoping for the best.
Yep. And so there's some interesting stuff going on. Once again, we're not naive enough to think that we should be winning all these games and have a great record.
We should be beating Memphis.
We should. Memphis has always been there for us. But we should be working with a purpose towards something, right? And moving the players that need to be moved for that, even though they've been great Jazz players and they are very nice players. And on some nights they do some great things. It just doesn't fit what we're looking for. And in kind of the casual finish anywhere between the 13 and the 10 seed in the West each year doesn't get you good enough draft picks to really make the leaps you need to, and makes it hard for players to want to come here.
Yeah, that takes us right back to, the Dennis Lindsay era of being content with maybe making the playoffs, maybe winning in the first round, but that's all you're really, really pushing for, and not taking the risks. That's a big thing, is you have to be willing to take risks as a coach, as a GM, all of that to win a championship. We have to be willing to take those risks and go for it. We cannot, in our organization, our GM, our coach, our play style cannot be safe. Safe gets you what we've had for the past 25 years, which is not championships, not really pushing for championships. Maybe one year you kind of push to the Western Conference Finals, maybe make that push. But that's it. That is what safe gives you as an organization. The Nuggets have not played it safe. The Nuggets made moves when they needed to make moves, and they won a championship. The Warriors didn't play it safe. The Heat didn't play safe, right? All of these teams are teams that took risks. The championship teams, every single one of them, took some sort of risk to get to where they are.
And even Oklahoma City Thunder. I mean, they had some fantastic draft picks in the early 2000s. They had 3 MVP draft picks in a row each year, 3 years in a row. That's incredible. But then they got into the portions where, they traded away and they picked up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They weren't sure if he was their guy at first, right? Yeah. And they finished bottom of the pile a handful of times. They got some really good draft picks. Chet Holmgren came in last year, and everybody was kind of mocking him because he was injured right away and couldn't play, and he's playing pretty darn well right now.
Yeah.
Another thing that they did during those losing years is there's a little mini documentary out there about Micic is his name. He was the MVP of the EuroLeague last year, and he was drafted by Oklahoma City Thunder I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, and they didn't have him come over. They had him wait, didn't even give him a spot on the roster because he would have made him a little bit better than they wanted to be. It didn't fit what they were trying to do at the time. That's a team with a plan, right?
Right. They at least have a direction.
They had a plan and they were executing it. Right now, it seems like we're playing in the middle ball, and it doesn't make sense either way. So that's kind of what we're voicing on our frustrations there. But have a plan, pick a direction. I understand that we're, in a mode of waiting for a good deal to come across the table. Kind of Ainge and Zanuck have mentioned that, and having the resources and the cap space to be able to take advantage if it happens. If that's the case, we need to see something by the trade deadline, right?
Yeah.
Or some change in style of play or whatever we're doing.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Not style, but rotations and roster utilization.
For sure. At the very least, put freaking Kessler. Stop screwing around with that. Put him back in the starting lineup. We're not getting him back into shape anymore, right? Just freaking put him back in the starting lineup and let's continue to get him back to where he needs to be.
Yep, that'll be interesting. And Markkanen hasn't even traveled with the team, so he's out still for at least
Another
this
game,
one
we
and
go
another
back.
one.
Yeah.
At least. So interesting to see when that happens. And start utilizing our length and athleticism that this roster was built for.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Got another game tomorrow.
Keep coming with the comments. That last video was great. We want to kind of bring them up and talk about them during the show and love it. Even though somebody, people have different opinions. That's still part of it.
The interaction's been super fun with y'all. So yeah.
Love it. Keep hitting us up.
Thanks, guys.